Final Fantasy VII Remake! Can you tell I'm excited for this? Oh, I didn't even play Final Fantasy for the first time until 4 years ago, 2016. And it was the original Final Fantasy VII. 3 playthroughs later, many Omni Slashes, Knights of the Rounds, Weapons Killed, and Golden Chocobos, the remake is out. Find out whether or not I'll be suggesting Final Fantasy VII Remake. Well, where do we begin? We've been in a time of remasters for years, but remakes, that's a little more rare. We saw a shining example of this when we saw Crash the N-Sane Trilogy and Spyro Reignited came out. But will Final Fantasy VII Remake join them? Now, anyone who is new will have this question: why is this remake only covering what is about 10% of the original? So for context's sake, the original Midgar section is about 5 hours at most. Beating this game took me 40 hours. So expect to see a lot of expansion of the story, characters, and Midgar as a whole. However, Final Fantasy had mixed reception with how they released 15 broken up. Have they redeemed themselves? With Capcom on a huge turnaround, is it time for Square Enix? Let's find out. One of the biggest overhauls in recent years for Final Fantasy series is its combat. When it comes to a turn-based, I always preferred Final Fantasy X's approach because there was no ATB system. I wasn't punished for not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, and in the original I've been hit several times because I went the wrong way on the item menu or I hadn't quite figured out what I wanted to do. Don't get me wrong, I got used to it, and I would find workarounds like manually sorting my item list, learning to act quicker, but if I had to pick between 7 and 10 to combat, I'd pick 10 every time. Maybe it's my childhood playing games like Dynasty Warriors, Lord of the Rings, or many other hack and slash games is the reason why I love how this game feels, but it's the perfect amalgamation of hack and slash and 7's ATB system. I can hit away doing the moves I want, but when I need to apply an item or a move, it won't stop time, but it's so slow you can take a long time to make the choice for the moves or items. But if you know you'll be using certain ones consistently, it can be hotkeyed for that instant response, which is always nice to see because the option for hotkeying is rarer than it should be. Over the story, you get to play as a few characters, starting with Cloud. He's immediately focused with the sword, Barrett with his gun arm, Tifa with her fighter's gloves, and Aerith with her magical staff. Now, I haven't gone into their builds, and why is that, you ask? Well, that's because the next interesting change has happened. Weapons will no longer go out of date with its upgrade system. Every level you earn SP, and you need SP to level up your weapon. But no matter what weapon you're using, all weapons gain it, which means every weapon can be upgraded no matter what, but they do have a purpose. Each one suits a build, whether it's strength, magic, defense, or average at everything, and this is the same for all characters. Weapons are unique in another aspect too. They all have a unique move, which with enough use, you can master them, gaining the ability to use them on any weapon. So if you want to go full strength, or keep that signature Buster Sword, instead of replacing it in the first hour like the original, personally I went with Hard Edge, because Cloud was always at the front of the fight, so I made him a pure damage, almost glass cannon build. Now something I love is how this combat feels, whether it's issuing commands, switching characters, everything flows nicely, and honestly I enjoyed fighting as all of them. It became way more of a who is useful in this situation rather than stubbornly sticking to one and just fighting as them regardless of how useful they are. And nothing feels better than being able to combo it up, and real talk, Tifa and the possibilities of actually trying her moves together is awesome. There's a huge variety of enemies, and maybe playing the original helped me appreciate this more, but the design is fantastic, and seeing them all in beautiful HD is amazing. The house in particular, well done Square Enix, well done. There was possibly only one design flaw, which were the enemies that would typically grab onto you and need someone to break you out. You still encounter them when you're running solo, and while they don't kill you, you just have to wait for them to let go and take the damage while you do. There are ways to avoid this, but overall it can really slow down the fight in what is otherwise a good system. The bosses are very different now. While they look the same and carry some similar patterns of the originals, the fights are much longer. It's pretty normal for them to last 10 minutes upwards, and if you die you could probably double that. These guys all heavily vary, from the Scorpion Sentinel and the Mako Reactor to Roach, who is a member of Soldier, and you fight them on your motorbike and then later again on foot, and there are many others such as the Turks, Sephiroth, and man, so many great ones I haven't even begun to mention. Not just bosses, but all enemies have weaknesses, and I would recommend you assess all of them so you can optimize how you fight, and you can very easily record this information by pressing the touchpad. And I can't tell if this next point is criticism or not, but being interrupted doing an awesome move like Infinity's End and losing your AP is crazy frustrating. But it did make me time my moves better, so take that as you will. I could speak about the combat for ages, but let's move to the next part. Exploration. So how does it work in this game? Is it a linear game or an open world one? Well, it's both, and you'll find yourself opening pockets of areas that can be explored at your leisure, but when you advance the story, it moves on to the next one. This doesn't happen all too often, and you will find yourself going back to the same area a few times. It doesn't get tedious, luckily, and with the addition of side quests, there is something to do. I actually completed every side quest, and I'll be honest, some can be pretty generic. There are a couple cool ones, like, off the top of my head, Angel of the Slums, but if you've played an MMO, you've probably played these quests 1,000 times. There aren't any more than 30 in the whole game, providing you don't count the VR summon challenges, arenas, and exercise challenge with the bros. Some areas can look very similar, but also different. It's weird. You can generally tell each sector apart, but Wall Market is my favourite, and despite the Don being the Don, he's made it look awesome. You also get to see some reactors, topside, Shinra building, and it's just great to see it all. Everywhere you go, you'll see people having conversations and just adding life to the world. And while I think they nailed a lot of the characters you meet, and they all look fantastic, but you can tell where they devoted all their time because the environment is lacking. Someone even told me in chat that they left it low resolution as a throwback to the old game, and I just call that bollocks. Like, what's a dumb argument? I was often left thinking though, has this door loaded in? Do I have to wait and the textures will pop in? Nope. But what I will say is the game ran very well. I never saw it drop below 60 on the PS4 Pro, and the particles and the moves look bloody fantastic. Maybe they had an issue with optimization and that's why the textures could be questionable? Who knows? One thing that has to be said about this game's soundtrack is that it's bloody perfect. They have remastered the scores so well. And what I love about making this video is the excuse to play the game and listen to it all again. Whether it's that iconic Shinra, Barrett's charming singing of victory fanfare, Tifa's theme, Era's theme, and you know what? I'm just going to stop here because I'd end up mentioning every damn score in this game. I get pretty passionate about soundtracks if you can't tell, and this is certainly among the best. Overall, the world is pretty linear, with, as I said, pockets of exploration. But due to story reasons, you will see many areas, and I love getting an insight to everywhere as well, which is really what this whole game is about, expanding the world and lore. But speaking of lore, let's talk about the story. Where do we even begin? Do you know what, actually, before we even start, I'm going to reiterate this point, and why I think this is a good and not a bad that it isn't a carbon copy of the original. This game expands so much on what I feel the original wanted. This game was 3 discs, and due to all kinds of limitations, I just couldn't go into too much. And well, those limitations are gone, and a 100GB game isn't out of the question anymore. In fact, it's the norm. So yeah, I went into this game expecting, well, the original in beautiful graphics, but then everyone on Twitter was saying it was a 30+ hour journey, and it's just Midgar. I replayed the original just so I could compare before jumping on the remake, and it took me no longer than 5 hours. So how do we get into this game, which is arguably 6 to 8 times longer than that? You start with that iconic scene, everyone getting off the train, taking down the guards, and can I just emphasize how good everyone looks? Biggs, Wedge, Jesse, marry me, wait, Baron too! And I would also like to say bravo on the voice acting, by the way. I didn't look at anyone and think, good voiceover, but that voice just doesn't fit. But that is not the case here, folks. Anyway, I'm going to keep getting distracted. I can only apologize, but hey, you're going to get used to me eventually, right? Now, there's a big point from Cloud. He's a merc. Doesn't really feel, as he always says, for a price. But it's in the Mako reactor we see the first taste of the remake. Expansion or reworking. The bomb goes off and the place is damaged, but not so bad as a chain reaction. Shinra steps in and cranks it up to 11 so they can scapegoat Avalanche as terrorists who mean to harm everyone. And it's a really nice twist. Now you really see everyone's personality shine. Jessica's playful as hell, knows who she is, and well, thirsty too, let's be honest. Wedge, you can't help but, I can't help but hear Badger from Breaking Bad, but he is perfect for that role. Big ol' softy who just wants to help. Biggs is a dependable good guy who wants to help all those around him, and later on you find something about his past that got me emotional. Barrett is amazing. He's a tough guy, hard negotiator, but when he's with his daughter, he's a big old gentle giant. Then there's Tifa, who's there's some history. She's crazy strong and constantly questions what she is doing and is it the right thing to do. And then there is Aerith. I wasn't a huge fan of her in the original. She seemed important but weak and a bit of a pushover. That is not the case in this one. Teasing Cloud, stands her ground and knows she is capable. And there are so many more characters such as the Turks, Rufus, many more at Shinra, and someone who I hold special, Johnny, because his enthusiasm is contagious. The next big change is obviously that Cloud gets an apartment, and now to help him stick around, he is going around completing side quests to increase his reputation as a mercenary. There doesn't seem to have anything really tangible for doing all of it. There's no way to track this either, so it's a narrative thing more than anything. But then we get to know characters way better, and we have a section where we go and head topside to grab some supplies for Jessie. She actually holds herself responsible for the chain reaction, not knowing it was Shinra. But then you get a taste of someone from Soldier called Roach, and he is absolutely bonkers. You then get to see where her family is, a bit into her background, and there's just this huge sense of camaraderie between those guys at Avalanche. I will loosely summarize the key events because I could honestly talk about this all day. You scale the underbelly of the place and see the artificial suns. You have a weird kind of puzzle section, but it involves you moving power around so you can get topside to the reactor, but just about everything that could go wrong has. But when you're in the reactor, they give you a series of choices, which I love. This new machine by Shinra is a beast, but luckily for us, it's only about 60% complete. But we have a chance to interfere. Each room has a series of supplies for that machine, and you choose an item each time that gets marked for scrap. Once you get rid of its bombs, its ability to move quickly, or how smart it is, well, you get a say. You take it down, it ends with you falling, but it's okay because a flower bed broke our fall. Sorry, Aerith. You meet a member of the Turks, and again they have also been elaborated on further too, which is awesome, but whenever you see these guys, expect a good fight, and it isn't always straightforward as you would think. You get away, and you get to see Aerith's home, and my god is it lovely. I could happily live there. Nice garden, house, and a waterfall. It's everything you need. You get a taste of the other sectors, you end up helping out an orphanage, the Turks come back, and this time you fight Rude. But when you're alone with Aerith's mum, she asks you to leave in the night, in a vague hope she won't get involved. But of course she gets involved. You think you've gone out quietly, but Aerith is waiting for you. You make your way back because our friends must be worried, and what I like here is that every time you solve a puzzle, she tries to high-five Cloud, and he just, every time he just really awkward about it, but he slowly understands what she's trying to do by the end. He even raises his hand. Progress, people! Then there is the build up to the scene I just couldn't wait to see reimagined. You see Tifa find out she is going to see Don Corneo to get information, and she hopes to do this by being a bride he picks. But to get there, you get a questionable massage, fight in an arena, help a man regain his passion for dressmaking, and then have an amazing dance number with Andrea. It looked fantastic, and thank you for not being a boring slide and press. It was animated so well, and as you can see right now, bravo Square Enix! Bravo! Throughout your journey you will find Cloud stopping, holding his head, hallucinating, but it gives us either an insight into his past, someone haunting him, or his future, and that is usually Sephiroth. He looks fantastic, but nonetheless plagues Cloud. And this just explains him so much better than before, where you would just see him holding his head, and now we get to know him so much earlier than before, because you know what? I have to say this. In the original, I hated Cloud, right until he finally pieced himself back together, so the fact he actually progresses much earlier was a huge relief. And let's face it, we aren't exactly lacking quality characters. I don't know whether or not I should be happy about this, but the Don picked me. That's right, ladies. Tifa and Aerith, step aside because Cloud is in town and I'm ready to... Oh, God. And then, you know what? They really nailed just how much the Don is a huge creep, and I love it. And just seeing Cloud say no, and like he just gets more and more excited the more it goes on. It was the funniest thing to watch. But you threatening his private area with Tifa and Aerith, it's safe to say he gave up the information we were after pretty quick. Shinra, who were looking for Avalanche's home base plans, to drop an entire plate just to get to them. So now you need to rush home, and this is probably my least favourite section of the game. Everyone is fighting for their survival, and that's of everyone in Sector 7. And now you have to enter through a train graveyard with phantom children, things, and a boss fight. And we get a little bit of insight into like how Aerith was alone after her mother died, but all I could think was, let me get back so I can save my friends. And I cannot emphasize just how long this whole section took. I think I only died there once, and it took roughly maybe 2 hours, and I didn't have time to save it. I just couldn't get there quick enough, and I'm just thinking the whole time, I need to save my friends. However, you get through and you see everyone is trying to hold out as Shinra throws what they can, and immediately Wedge falls. He half catches himself, but he is hurting hard after the fall, and the fact he didn't immediately die there like the original gave me hope. It was a very sad moment with Biggs and Jesse. It was a serious field trip, and getting to know them so much more than before really made me care for each and every one of them. You fight the Turks, and it's funny seeing Rude possibly made Rita miss the shot with his chopper because he likes Tifa, and it's a little details like that I really love to see. It was a pretty awesome fight, and now it's time to address one of my biggest frustrations with the game. It does get explained, but at the time, it sucked. So you win the fight, but these Reaper things blocked us from doing anything, and they always seem to happen at convenient times to give the villain a free pass. So they got to activate the plates and get away. It turns out these guys are essentially arbiters of fate. They interfere to make sure everything happens as it should, as it's destined to be. Learning that later on made me forgive this, but man, at the time I was losing it. However, as you're escaping, knowing full well you left everyone in an awful state, it's a very bitter and sad affair. After Wedge helped everyone evacuate, it shows him trapped by those damn fate things with his cats because he wanted to save them. Game, why do you do this to me? And while this is all happening, Aerith found Marlene, but she is found by the Turks. And last you know, they make a deal. Aerith goes away and you make your way to her house. She did in fact save Marlene, and seeing Barrett panic along the journey, going through all the emotions of how he thinks he might have lost his kid, and then the realization he might have hope, and then when he actually sees her, it is heartwarming, to say the least. After a touching reunion with Marlene, you know what must be done. It's time to save Aerith. You'll head back into Sector 7 slum ruins, and you'll see where Wedge was, but his cat is leading you, and he's alive! There is hope yet, and this game is straying from the original, and I am loving it. You discover an underground lab, fight monsters, take Wedge back to Aerith's home to recover, and you'll track down the Don. Have a pretty cool quest and an expansion on the character Leslie. You'll also tidy up some other side questing, get a hold of grappling guns to scale the ruins, and for those who played the original, no more climbing pipes and having to come back for batteries. No! It's time for grappling guns, my friends, and you get to traverse the remains of Sector 7 and make your way to the Shinra building. This time around, there is no choice, so you sneak in. But before we delve any further, it's time to enter the spoiler zone. Feel free to skip to the time frame below. Now I want you to tell me in the comments below, which did you choose? Stairs or elevators? There's only one right answer, and that is stairs. Be prepared to climb 59 floors and hear Barrett's remarks while everyone gets gradually slower, and as someone who can't help but sprint everywhere, having the game tell me, hold up, we are tired, and get to a slower and slower walk adds to the charm. One thing we get a greater insight to as well is Crisis Core. I haven't really mentioned it because I'm about to play it for the first time, but seeing Zack in memories and even having soldiers recognize Cloud is a really cool little throwback. You also get a really awesome scene showing what they envisioned the Promised Land to look like and how they thought the planet would used to be with the Ancients. I even noticed Shiva going around, like floating around over there. You make your way further with the help of the mayor, who has been elaborated on further, and he's an inside agent for Avalanche. You spy on their meeting and learn even more as to why Shinra is the villain. You make your way further up and end up in Hojo's lab, who they nailed, by the way. And who else did they nail? Red 13. The first thing me and all of chat said was perfect voice.
A fascinating question.
Did it just talk?
You asked what it is. I am that which you see before you, nothing more. I'd appreciate it if we simply left it at that. Agreed?
I'm a little upset I didn't get to play him, but I can see why they wouldn't want to introduce a new character's mechanics so close to the end of the game. But you make your way through his lab, but who is there taking Jenova? Sephiroth. Cloud throws away all logic and charges him, but he is swatted away. And now, split up, you get through the last of Hojo's lab, following a weird purple blood trail left by Jenova. You end up in Shinra's head office. I'm expecting to see the president impaled on a katana, but he isn't. He's actually hanging for his life, and Barrett is ready to get revenge for everything he's done to the planet, the people, his friends, but he is convinced by Tifa to not go down this path. Eventually, after, he pulls a gun on Barrett and shows the villain side with a speech, and suddenly, out of nowhere, Sephiroth appears and stabs him. And then Barrett too, and I was freaking out. But then I saw the Fate Keepers healing him, so I held up hope that he would live. You then fight Jenova. I was always curious to see how gross she could look in this HD, and I was right, she is nasty. But it's a good fight with some weird mechanics, and then you get on your feet. You defeat Jenova, and you help everyone get away, because it's time to fight Rufus. This is a good fight, and to be honest, the end is just constantly good boss battles. Rufus looks badass, and it ends with you hanging for your life, but Rufus leaves. Cloud is about to drop when Tifa saves him and drops a little funny line of, if you're going to be a merc, you've got to be better than this. The others are now about to fight the next boss, and you see Wedge, and he tries to help out, but he's almost thrown away by the Arbiters of Fate, and you hear glass shattering. I am hoping so much that he isn't dead. No one's saying it, but the way he ended saying, I hope I helped, right now, I'm on edge. So if someone knows the answer to this, by the way, please tell me. But I digress. They don't just fight him on the elevator now, they actually move to a plaza-like area with destructible scenery. From the enemy moveset and its ability to get up in your face, it's not surprising they moved it to make the fight more difficult. They win and end up in the reception.
Avalanche!
Local florist.
Lab rat dog.
And where are the rest of you? Up your ass!
They are surrounded when you hear the sound of that motorbike, and Cloud is tearing them up. Tifa grabs the car, and it's time for the next boss. Of all the boss fights, while this can be cool, it is my least favorite. That's because you're on the bike, and there's a lack of options. Attack left, attack right, spin attack, and a charged ranged hit. And that's it. But it isn't a long fight, and you survive. However, the end cinematic of Cloud and Red taking it down is awesome. You reach the end of the road and Sephiroth is there. Aerith is calling him out, and the feathers really reminded me of the film Advent Children. These Arbiters of Fate are everywhere, but you're hit with a look at Zack Fair, who's about to face off with Shinra soldiers, and their relevance I will say soon. But Sephiroth cuts his way through them, and now it is made clear. If we proceed, it will change fate. I'm screaming, what does this mean? You fight this giant Harbinger and these smaller 3 forms that have different ways of being taken down, and he keeps interesting and some really good cinematic pieces, but when you take him down, and can I just say the CG quality here is insane. I think the game looked good, but this could definitely be an RTX on me. Looks like Sephiroth also absorbs all of those whispers and you face him. And then when you defeat him, it really reminds me of this whole Final Destination vibe, like area, except no more Jenova. But when you take him down, it's what happens next that blows my mind. You get a montage of what's happening. You see Rufus, Hojo, and then a desert. And who's standing? Zack freaking Fair! He survived? What does this mean? And then you see more, you see Biggs. He's alive too! But where's Wedge? Where is he? Where's Jesse? Game, why do you do this to me? Now I'm going to be going all Jon Snow, reading every theory about their possible return. Also, Marlene and Ancient? Maybe? They certainly showed something there, but it ends with them leaving, walking past Zack and Cloud in another time, and everyone agreeing to take Sephiroth down. There are so many possibilities now. I'll be going into a part 2 with almost no assumptions, and the fact that they are so willing to change so much has me pumped, because I will live with you guys. If I wanted the original journey, I'll play the original, but seeing them make such big changes while still catering to our nostalgia is crazy, and I'm so hyped to see what they can do next. Overall, I had an absolute blast playing this game. I've tried to compress what I've said about this, and yet it's become one of my longest videos yet. But now that I have played it, I am mad for all of its story. I'm going to rewatch Advent Children, play Crisis Core for the first time, but I think my opinion here is pretty clear. At no point did I have to grind. Yes, I beat every side quest, challenge and arena, but there was never so much there that I thought, oh, for God's sake, really? So if you're like me and you enjoy great story, combat, world, and characters you actually connect with, then yes, I'm suggesting Final Fantasy VII Remake.